this character called liar. He has disturbed people. Mm-hmm. So when you tell him, who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats...
We love to share our culture and the one language that unites us all. One that helps us start the day and keeps us going. Brookside Dairy Best is part of every celebration and offers a warm welcome to every home.
Karibuni chai.
Na hii ni lugha ambayo kila Mkenya anaelewa. The more the milk, the better the chai. Chai kweli.
All right, cloudy at 16 in Nairobi, highs of 23 and lows of 16 today. And we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions at 16 in Nakuru. Going to highs of 22 and lows of 15. It's 17 and cloudy in Nyeri with highs of 22. And looking into a cloudy Eldoret at 16, we'll see highs of 22 and lows of 14. In Mombasa now, we're seeing heavy rain at 25 with highs of 27. And into Malindi, it's raining as well at 27 with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Kampala is cloudy. Kisumu, cloudy at 21 with highs of 26. And Kakamega, partly sunny conditions at 19 with highs of 26. Kampala is cloudy at 20 with highs of 25. And we're looking into a cloudy Dar es Salaam after the rain at 25 with highs of 29 and lows of 24. It's partly cloudy in Addis Ababa at 16 with highs of 23, and Mogadishu is sunny at 28 with highs of 32. Partly cloudy in Lagos at 26 with highs of 32, and it's sunny at 12 in Johannesburg with highs of 21 and lows of 12. And we're looking at cloudy conditions at 24 in Kinshasa with highs of 32 and lows of 24.
Spice up your life.
Okay, on the Thika Superhighway, traffic coming then into the CBD. Still, heavy rights around Pangani and coming in further at the underpass. But beyond that, I think we're all right. Hasn't seen much traffic on that highway today. It's busy on James Gishuru, spilling over towards Red Hill. Very heavy traffic, then getting towards Lower Kabete, then coming in through Peponi and Parkland. So one to watch for if you're in that area. Sorry, it's going to go a little bit slower, at least for now. Jogoo Road is heavy with traffic going towards Landis and then out towards the Kamkunji roundabout. Apart from that, I think we're doing all right in the city. Ngong Road has a little bit here and there, but as we get into the end of traffic hour, it should clear up. Let's see and talk to us on SpiceFM, KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
He's the chairperson of the Diabetes and Hypertension Management Foundation. So you've said diabetes is kisukari in Kiswahili. Hypertension, there's conflicting news. Pressure, kila mtu anaita pressure. Then there's to say it's msukumo wa damu. That's shinikizo la damu.
Sasa huo ni Google amekwambia.
Yeah?
Google amesema hivyo.
Google anasema hivyo?
Shinikizo la damu, yes.
Bas. It's one of those. Okay. This foundation is basically a group that was formed by Duncan and then other members joined. And their main aim so far is create awareness about diabetes and hypertension, support in management and treatment, and advocacy. Who are the members of your foundation?
Our members are drawn from the groups that we managed or that we have, the WhatsApp groups. of about 2,300, but out of the 2,300, the membership is only 267. So these are the members. Majority of the members are in Nairobi, but we also allowed other members to join in. With the beauty is that technology has allowed us to do a lot. So through the membership, we, for example, have monthly contributions that go into the kitty to support all these activities. You have a platform that I think has been created by other wonderful Kenyans out there that are, you're able to enroll, and everyone is seeing, every contribution, every money that goes out is seen there. So the members are drawn out of the support groups we have.
Is it only people who are living with the conditions?
Yes, and also caregivers. We also allow caregivers, especially for kids with type 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about healthcare professionals?
We have healthcare professionals as well, even within our support groups. And the professions we have also now, we were lucky because all these things, including the facility we have, the medical center, is also run now by professionals like specialists, nutritionists. So they are also, by virtue of being at the facility, they're also members of the groups.
There's something that you'd mentioned, and you talked about your own experience seeing your father going through diabetes and the complications of diabetes and the impact that had on not just him, but his family as well. Not just you psychologically, but also financially as well. So tell us, what is this that you hear even from the other members? What does diabetes and what does hypertension, what do these two conditions do? What's the effect that they have on the community?
One of the things that we have seen and continuously it's been researched on, you'd require about 7,000 bob on lower side to effectively manage these two conditions, 7,000 a month. So you can imagine the financial toll that this has on families. The other thing is that most of the time the people who are affected by this condition are breadwinners. It's either your mom, your dad, and especially when it's poorly controlled, it would mean that some complications would set in, and which would require that you have to probably be hospitalized most of the time. So there's time that you would lose where you were productive, and you're losing on that income. Whether it also potentially affects your work. The other challenge we have seen, even within the type 1 or type 2, even before people, actually the people who join our groups, they will tell you that especially type 1, they didn't know, that there was such a group, because diabetes can be quite a lonely condition to manage. So these support groups also, it's the platform kind of helps them to understand that it's a whole community. It's not just affecting them. Of course, we have also the other thing that we have seen, and we have also played a great role, is that we have helped the people and even their caregivers to understand how to relate with each other. We always used to kid that a lot of families out there have made because the families would act like policemen. So they have made we have diabetes criminals in families, because generally there's an understanding that you need to know how to relate with people, how to help them manage this condition better. So the financial toll is there, emotional toll is there, and a lot of it, I think, also for us is that when people realize that, I will tell you, so in one of our groups we have got people like Eli, a gentleman called Eli Udhiambo from UK, and a couple of them have been with the condition for more than 45 years. So it also it gives you a kind of a new thinking that, oh, wait a minute, I thought this was a death sentence. Kumbe it's not, because we've got people within this group who are doing things right. So in that way, it also inspires people to be able now to take more care of themselves and change their lifestyles and have a completely different perspective of what they probably used to have before knowing these platforms.
Does the organization have a platform where they talk to people about prevention, understanding that there are things you can do to limit your chances of actually being burdened with this disease?
Yes, and that is, I guess, one of the reasons that that gave birth to what we are today. Because you can imagine, City, from 2014 until to date, all our platforms speak about this condition all the time, and again we do screenings as we are marking World Diabetes Month. We're also doing a lot of screenings throughout Nairobi and some other places.
When you say screening, what do you mean?
The screening, you said medical camp. Let me put it that way, where you go out in public, you offer free screening, whether it's random blood sugar, hypertension. So what happens is that you would find there are people who you'd screen, and they would find they have elevated sugars. So you are able to give them advice that this is what you need to do. We have a team of nutritionists, clinicians, and a doctor. And also we hold our webinars that we invite our doctors to talk to people whom we invite again from our I would say very strong social media platforms, and also to speak about any questions that they would have, including the reversal part or the prevention part.
How expensive is it to manage diabetes, as we're looking at today? Because one of the issues that we talk about is the cost. So looking at folks who are in a community whereby there's support that's being offered, then of course the resources are being shared in terms of where you can go, what you need to do to purchase. Is it expensive to manage diabetes, and what are we looking at then in the treatment of it, whether it's type 2 or whether it's type 1?
It's quite expensive to manage this condition, and I would actually say and ask the people watching or listening, to take preventive I would say caution, or rather to have themselves screened, change their lifestyle, because it's very expensive. I'll tell you, even as we mark World Diabetes Day, 14th November, this month, 1921. Is when a gentleman called Frederick Banting and another gentleman called Charles, like you, they invented quote unquote insulin, and they passed the patent for insulin for $1. Because insulin was still is for common good, But now, when you look at the prices we have, including developed countries like the United States, where even the president had to pass an executive order, to bring down the cost for insulin, it's quite expensive. So you're looking at anything between 500 to 900 shillings for, let me say the most affordable insulin we call Mixtard. But when you now move to other types of insulins, because insulin is categorized into two types, fast-acting and slow-acting. So when you move to the fast-acting types of insulins, they would go from anything between, and actually they've gone up right now, really up to around 1,900, 2,000. And you did these pens, probably one pen would last you a week. So you're talking about 2,000 bob for 4 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite expensive.
Siti,
yes.
When you were working with communities in addressing HIV,
yes,
you've told us many times before that it was important for, first of all, people to understand the disease, not only those who are infected, but everybody else who's affected as well.
Yes.
To understand it.
The family members.
The community, to understand it and to know what it is.
Yes.
I'm hearing the same thing that Duncan is doing with his foundation, widening awareness about diabetes and hypertension. I mean, these conditions have been there. I mean, those people just say that and they pass it on and they just assume this person is managing it, or maybe they are not, or whatever they are doing, they are living with it. But there clearly is a gap in the level of understanding of what diabetes and hypertension is.
Well, yes, Eric. Thank you very much for bringing that up. You see, there were two people I worked with. One is called Dr. Jeremy Penn, another one was Dr. Reson Marima. Now, these are some of the most gung-ho, motivated people among people I've ever worked with. But then they had a boss called Professor Elizabeth Bukusi, who was similarly inclined. But being an older person, she was a little more restrained. These two went out of their way to try anything that would work. And we realized that it was not possible for you to tackle this matter of HIV if the entire family of the person who was positive, HIV positive, was not involved. You are not going to manage it, because the greatest enemy to the process of managing the disease was stigma. What people didn't know, the myths around it, the misconceptions around it, as opposed to the truth, because that was what was constantly fighting the truth about it. And involving family, meaning you bring the entire family, they all get tested. And here, entire family means even if you have more than one wife, you bring all of them. Yes, maybe at different times, but they all come. Now, it also meant that you also engage in your employment the community service. You see this process that you hear the government talking about, community involvement, community workers and so forth. We insisted that the people who worked in the communities had to be HIV positive. There were some who weren't, but the vast majority had to be. And the reason was because when you have people propagating a message, ensuring that the narrative is understood and the HIV positive, it is a lot easier. And if they come from that very community, it helps reduce this process of stigma. Now, why have I gone to town on this explanation? It's because that constant trying to figure a way in which you could reduce not just the incidences, the occurrences and the new infections, but ensuring that people who were then infected could manage it without fear. Now, diabetes, but the HIV, if it wasn't for the interventions and for the treatment and care, it's also a very expensive disease to manage. ARVs are expensive. It just happens that they are donated and they are free, or they are supported, but they are extremely, prohibitively expensive. If diabetes and the management of it had a similar approach, then you would find that the support system, if you talk about a diet, if your whole family knows, then it's not a problem, because they will know that there are certain things that you will not be predisposed towards eating. If they are not, they'll keep asking, but why don't you eat this? Or why don't you eat at this time? Why don't you? Now, that alone applies pressure. Now, something that you will also note is that when you have diabetes, the one thing you don't need is stress. You don't need pressure, as we call it. It was the same with HIV. And part of the reason was, to simply put it in layman terms, the advent of stress in your system reduces your immune system. Now, once it starts affecting your immune system, then the likelihood of you being sick or sicker is that much higher. So, yes, it was a process that one went through and one got to understand. And beyond the family, because families are members of communities, it was then easier to involve the community because, yes, families are involved because one of their members is HIV positive. The people who form part of the community service are also HIV positive. So when they are talking or counseling, they have their medication with them. I mean, they will tell you, this is what I take and this is how I take it. Not this is what you should take and this is how it works. All I'm saying is, when you have people with diabetes, I myself am a diabetic. If you have people with diabetes talking about diabetes, then it's a lot easier, because I'll be talking about my lived experience. I don't have to read a book. I'll just have to tell you, this is how it works. This is what I understand it to be. I, for instance, manage my diabetes with a diet. I'm not on insulin. I'm not on any medication. So it's a process, and it's a decision that you have to make, and you have to determine, this is how I'm going to go about it.
And there's a case now for these support groups.
There is
platforms.
A huge case for it, because being sick, even if it isn't diabetes, is a problem. Let me be specific, mostly to men. Men usually need to be on their deathbed for them to go to hospital. Everything else, they will simply buy some over-the-counter medication to reduce the pain, to reduce the discomfort. But why the preventative aspect of any disease is important, and this screening that we're talking about, when you know early, you know what to do. Because there's a pre-diabetic stage. There can be signs that you might actually...
Where you're headed.
Yes. Now, once you know where you're headed, then you'll know how to divert it. But you need to be tested. You need to avail yourself. And the tests are not expensive.
CT, I have a question.
Please.
How do we get leaders to openly start talking about, this condition in now as also a way of helping create awareness, because we see it all the time. Chances are maybe at the point when someone is passing on is when you'd realize that, the condition that was associated was, diabetes. We have seen it, from, let's say, even the deputy president's brother, if, all these personalities, whether it's media or whether in politicians, because I think that would really play a great role in helping create awareness. But the question is why and how can we change the narrative?
We still, in this 21st century, are a country where very many people do not believe that people just fall sick. There must be some elements, some forces, some people behind the sickness. So again, an admission of illness is considered to be a catastrophic admission. It's like, hoya, kwani. Stigma, as we recall it, plays a very, very key role in very many things. You're asking the question, how do we get people to be able to understand that being sick isn't a weakness? Being sick is not a sign of you having done some wrong that is following your family somewhere along the line. Being sick doesn't mean you're not able to do what you're... You see, there are many things that one needs to understand. So it's not something that is going to be achieved in a day. Like what you and the association that you work with are involved in, there's a lot of progress that has been made, but it wasn't done in a day.
Sure.
It's something that you keep at it now, because that's how life as a human being on this planet is. A lot of the things we do are repetitive. A lot of the things we do bring about change, but it's incrementally, it's slow, and it's hardly noticeable. One talks about the noticeable stage when a lot has taken place and you're seeing the eventual results.
One of the researchers mentioned that, especially in the government, in also doing more to screen, because, you could even make it part of the process, whether you're visiting the public health hospitals and all that. But, one guy mentioned that the government is a bit hesitant, because they would screen, and of course they would realize that there are many people, living with this condition. Then, what happens?
They have to think of management.
Yes, exactly. And you must think of... You see, the thing is this, research science has indicated with great clarity, because if you're talking about even the deaths caused by diabetes in the developed world, the developed world has done a lot of work. The understanding about diabetes, it's out there, people know, okay? And what to do to be able to lower the chances and the likelihoods of it exists. How to prevent... What to do exists. Point is, if we talk about just two things, lifestyle, diet, that's it. We're not talking medication. We're talking about things which are within the purview of most of us. What do you do with your lifestyle? What do you do with what you eat? Meaning, what do you eat? Now, as you correctly put it, most of the foods that we consider traditional foods, they were at the heart of the preventative activity you could take.
Very true.
Just traditional foods, what we call traditional foods. This brown porridge, this brown ugali, which you look at and you wonder whether it's also staring back at you.
It was part of it.
Yes. And then, remember, in a traditional living, your life was full of activity. You woke up in the morning, there was something you were doing physically.
Yeah.
Okay? You were always doing something physically. When you went to visit, you were walking. Here we sit the whole day, then I go to the gym. Then come back the following day, sit the whole day, go back to the gym. Okay? I eat a hamburger until it's coming out of my ears, and then I go to the gym. Now, you see, I'm simply saying most of what is needed is within our purview.
I couldn't agree more.
Yes.
That if you are able to adjust your lifestyle, all these things are possible to even, not get to the point that you have diabetes or you're diabetic, especially type 2. Yeah.
How does one join the foundation if they'd like to join this group?
We have a platform, DMRC Kenya, which is our platform that also, because one of the challenges we saw with the members, including people within our community, is that two things, because when you, of course, diabetic, you require medication almost all the time. So we created two platforms that would make it easy for people to consult with doctors. talk to specialists, talk to a nutritionist. So one platform is called teledoc.co.ke. Then we also have the DMRC platform, which is also a platform that you can use to join the foundation, and also at the same time, in case you need a refill of one of the let me say health products you want, whether it's anti-diabetic drugs, you're also able to order online, and we're able to deliver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Duncan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And yes, good work that you're doing there, and keep doing it, and especially in creating awareness and advocacy. Let's keep make noise. Make noise, everybody. Make noise. Duncan Mutanya is the chairperson of Diabetes and Hypertension Management Foundation. He's been our guest this Health Friday, talking about the role of diabetes community support platforms in Kenya. Keep it here for more in the next hour. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. All cabinet secretaries will be in Mombasa today as President William Ruto is set to hold a cabinet meeting. This will be Ruto's first such meeting at State House Mombasa since he became president last year. The session in Mombasa marks the administration's fourth cabinet meeting held outside Nairobi. The president is currently on a 5-day tour of the coastal region. Thursday, he was joined by his deputy Rigathi Gachagua as they hosted King Charles III and Queen Camilla at the Mtongwe Naval Base in Likoni. Now, former Cabinet Secretary Aden Mohamed has been appointed Chief of Strategy Execution following the reorganization of the executive announced by President William Ruto. The circular issued by the head of state stated that Mohamed will head the President's Strategy and Execution team. He will be working in the Executive Office of the President, which is domiciled at the State House. Mohamed had previously served as a member of his Council of Economic Advisors. The former Trade and East African Affairs CS resigned in February 2022 to vie for the Mandera gubernatorial seat on the Jubilee Party ticket in the August 2022 general election. Mohamed was one of the only 5 cabinet secretaries who had served in former President Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet since he assumed office in 2013. Now, the office of the government spokesperson will now be domiciled in the office of the president. This is in line with the executive order issued by President William Ruto, where he stated that the move is aimed at strengthening the office in the performance of its duties. The position, which is currently held by Isaac Mwaura, was previously under the Ministry of Information and Technology. The office of the government spokesperson serves as the nerve center of government communications. Its core mandate is to coordinate, plan, manage, and implement communication of government policies, programs, and initiatives. And President William Ruto's United Democratic Alliance Party has extended an opportunity to parastatal heads, allowing them to participate in the upcoming grassroots election slated for December 9th, 2023. This decision contradicts the initial advisory from Attorney General J.B. Muturi and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, which had deemed parastatal heads as state officers, disqualifying them from engaging in political party activities. Addressing the media at the UDA party headquarters, Party Secretary General Cleophas Malala explained that UDA's decision was based on a ruling by the Court of Appeal. This ruling determined that board chairmen and directors do not fall under the category of state officers as defined by the Constitution. Hence, UDA has permitted them to participate in the grassroots election. And education stakeholders in Alego Usonga constituency have got reprieve after the area MP Samuel Atandi announced that there will be no more fundraisers for development of schools. The MP has assured his constituents that his office, through the National Government Constituency Development Fund, has enough resources that will fully develop projects in public schools across the region. He stated that going forward, the only fundraisers that he will conduct are those for development of women and youth groups, medical bills, and benevolent issues, among others, but not on issues of schools infrastructure development. Now, a night guard was found murdered in a house he stayed in the Ruai area, Nairobi. The victim, identified as Rajab Osman, was found lying on the floor with blood oozing from his mouth and nose. Police said both legs and arms were tied with a rope and seemed to have been hit in the head. It is suspected that 10 jerrycans of 20 litres of paint was stolen during the murder. Police said they are investigating murder and robbery with violence in the November 1st incident. The body was moved to the city mortuary awaiting postmortem. In Lunga, Nairobi, a woman was arrested for the murder of her husband in a domestic fight. And Nigeria's lower chamber of parliament has rejected the government's plan to buy a presidential yacht for $6 million. Nigerians had criticized the plan as a waste of money on luxuries during an economic crisis. Lawmakers instead moved the $6 million to the student loan budget, doubling its allocation. President Bola Tinubu took office in May with the promise to cut waste and ease people's financial hardship, but it triggered an outcry after he tabled a supplementary budget in the National Assembly for approval, with the planned purchase of the yacht listed under the Nigerian Navy's proposal capital expenditure of $53 million. Human rights activist and former lawmaker Shehu Sani reacted by saying that the poor can't be struggling for survival in a canoe while their leader is yachting. Tinubu spokesperson Temitope Ajayi distanced the president from plans to buy the yacht. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, we've not done too badly with traffic this morning. And I think that we're out of traffic hour early already. Just a few more trouble spots here and there, but manageable. Whatever's going on James Gishuru, cross our chests that it will be over by the time we come into a new week. But that still seems pretty busy as we're getting out towards Westlands. On the Thika Superhighway at that Pangani Underpass hold area is where most of it will happen now. But apart from that, you can navigate the city without an issue. Outbound traffic is also a thing. A lot of people leaving the city, getting into the weekend, still into the first week of the month. So it's something to look, watch and see. All right, let's see what happens as we get into the end of traffic hour proper. And we'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, newshound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
This morning, Toko hapa mpaka tamati. Okay? And Tamati is just about 50 minutes away from now. Then it'll be Tamati.
What is CC?
Unajua,
the affectations which we are affecting.
Hauelewi kabisa wewe.
Kabisa mimi.
Senator Crystal Asige joins us.
She does, just for a few minutes even.
Yes.
Yeah.
We like visitors who stay. Yes. Yeah, these flying visits are not really good for us.
No,
At least 5 minutes.
Where my mic? Where my mic? Where my mic? Where my mic?
Mike.
There you are.
Senator, good morning.
Morning. Hi, guys.
Hi,
And girl.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Fine.
Today, I'm making sure the mic is in front of me. I'm not just like bobbing around.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was in the building, so I wanted to come and say hi to you guys, give you personal invites to a little thing I'm doing tonight.
It's a little thing.
A little thing.
Okay. It's been a little thing.
Yes.
Yes, a little bit.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
It's good to see you, Senator.
Asante, thank you.
Yes,
I didn't mean to crash the party, my bad.
No,
It's
not
no,
bad.
you're not
It's
crashing
You
the party.
are not crashing
Now that
the
you're
party.
here,
Yes.
how about CT gives you the proverb, but then you can give us your interpretation of this
Okay,
proverb.
I'm ready.
And then you can give us your invitation.
Okay.
Then we can tell you what we think of the invitation. After you've told us what you think about the
Whether
proverb.
whether it'll pass or not, whether
Yes.
you support or not. Okay.
This is our final proverb from the Republic of Burundi. It is easy to pull a thorn out of someone else's skin.
It is easy to pull a thorn out of someone else's skin.
It is easy. Oh, it depends. What is a thorn? Is a thorn a negative or a positive? If it's a negative thing, then I would interpret it as being, it's easy to judge other people, to see something negative or a pain point in someone else before yourself. But if it's a positive thing, the thorn, then I interpret it as it's easy as a person who is looking outside, looking in, to see when someone is going wrong and to be like, hey, I want to help you with XYZ advice. That's what I think.
Good thinking.
Two sides, same coin.
Same coin.
I'm an
Head or
inclusive person, so I like thinking on all sides. I'm all about inclusion and diversity and equity.
You know how people like saying that a coin has two sides? It doesn't. It has three.
Where's the other one?
Just think. Think of a coin.
The circular part.
Head, tail, and then what you can place it on.
The edge.
That's the third side.
Okay. Is it a side though? Is an edge a side?
Yes, it is.
So the edge of this table is a side?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Right.
Just like a political party is a side.
Okay.
And we all have one.
Yes.
Whether we say it or not, we all have a side.
Now tell us about your invitation.
I came to drop an invitation to you guys. It's music that I'm launching today. I'm launching some new music. I've been busy in Senate and now I've been busy in studio, and I want to show what I have been cooking up. So Orchid Lounge this evening, I'll be performing the new music.
Love to hear it.
The album is called Blinding Allure, and it has 6 tracks on it. It is going live on my YouTube channel today at 10 a.m. so people can watch if they feel like listening to a senator singing. And then after work, baada ya kazi, you can come over to Orchid Lounge on Ngong Road to party with me and listen to it live.
Blinding Allure.
Blinding Allure.
Blinding Allure.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for that title of the album?
The title, Allure, just means to me something that's powerful, something that's captivating, something that's mysterious, and you want more of it. You are drawn to it in one way or the other. And I think that when something is a blinding allure, to me, it's like it's so clearly in front of you that the allure blinds you. So it's just a play on that, and because I feel like I've not been able to show all sides of myself. In the last 1 year, I've been sort of putting my head down in Senate, and people have been wondering, where's the music gone? What happened? And I'm like, don't worry. So now in my 1 year anniversary, because I was sworn in a year ago in October last year. So my 1 year anniversary, I want to give the people who knew me before Senate a bit of what I always have been giving them. So.
Sana. Invitation accepted.
Good. I hope to see you all there.
Okay.
Yes.
Asante sana.
Bring your dancing shoes.
Asante. Asante sana.
Thank you so much.
So we'll be having a conversation, and you can opt to sit in for this, or you can opt to go and start preparing for tonight. Ndu,
Yes.
where is the 54 billion shillings?
It's a question that I've been
Does
asking.
Parliament know?
Does Parliament know that there's 54 billion shillings that was supposed to go somewhere and it actually didn't go there? I think that's the question. For weeks now, we've been asking certain questions in terms of the hole that we feel when it comes to education in this country. I've said from the get-go that there's a crisis as far as education in this country is concerned, in terms of what has been happening. And then today, and again, I'm going to laud the Standard for bringing out this story with the details in which it has today, that we've been asking questions about why is there late disbursement of capitation money, and why is this something that has got to be the case term to term? Why do we finish a year with arrears having not been sent? What is the thinking of the Ministry of Education and the Treasury when the full amount for education has not been sent to schools? What is the thinking? What is the rationale in terms of how they expect then the process of education to be completed for an academic year if the capitation, which is vital to the operationalization of education, and it has not happened? What is the thinking that would make you say, yes, we finished a year and we finished it well, pat on the back, if the very blood, the life of this thing has not been delivered? So the questions have been, this year, probably more than ever before, we've heard school heads say it's too much. Suppliers have said we are not supplying schools anymore, and we're talking about secondary schools. Let's not even talk about what's going on in primary schools, okay? Public secondary schools. Suppliers have said, well, you guys have figured out on your own. You don't give us the money that we need to provide food for you or to do etc. Forget it. It's not going to happen. Let's look at what happened at the beginning of the year when we had the first cohort of grade 7 students. And for the first term, easily, little to no learning took place because we're still trying to find our nose from our head in the dark with this new system. We don't have enough teachers. 35,000 were promised to be hired. 20,000 of them are on contract. Another how many thousand are interns, etc. Didn't find that. Books now started trickling into schools towards the end of first term, maybe more than in the second term. And these are not sensationalist things. These are things that actually happened. Capitation then came out in second term. But remember, the capitation then that came out in first term was to complete the capitation that did not come out in third term of 2022. So what are you dealing with? You're dealing with a backlog, you're dealing with arrears, you're dealing with a new cohort of students who've never been in this system before. And for me, that's when I started to say, you know what? We're hurtling down this slippery slope and there's nothing to stop the damage. So we've been saying, what's happening? The academic year has ended, and it usually ends in the culmination here where we are. KCPE, KPSEA exams took place, ended on Wednesday, and KCSE begins today. Then we read this story and we look at the details of 54 billion shillings and how that, since 2019, has not been sent to schools. And I have to ask 3 questions. Number 1, where did 54 billion shillings go? Number 2, why would you use it for anything else? Why would you withhold this money if it was meant for capitation? And number 3, what do you expect to happen with this vacuum? And if there are no answers for this, at best, as in at best, we are joking with the lives of school-going children. At best, if we cannot answer these questions. Let's look at some of the numbers, because this, again, is not sensationalist. It is true. 2019 academic year, a pending balance from 4 years ago per student in secondary school, 1,127 shillings, giving you a total global number of 3,167,804,931. That's 2019. The child who was in Form 1 is finishing now. Is writing KCSE starting today for the child that you did not give that money, which you're guaranteed to give them because of capitation. 2020 to 2021, 5,000 shillings per child capitation was not given, giving you a global number of 16,982,119,448. 2021 to 2022, per child, 4,453 shillings and 80 cents, giving you a global number of 15,968,967,196. This current year, now, today, as we are, reminding you that the academic year is over. The Ministry of Education said that they released money. What they have not told you is that the money they released did not go to this year. It went to previous years in the arrears that were owed. And that money is 4,908 shillings. And the global number is 18,101,294,2 280 shillings. Now, when you put those years together, of all the money that has not been then sent out for capitation, you have 54,220,185,855. What does that tell you? That two things could have happened. The money got lost. Well, CT says money doesn't get lost.
I was going to say.
People use it. People take it. Right? Or that the money which was budgeted for education then was not allocated to the Ministry of Education to then allow this capitation take place. And that is the sorry state of affairs that we are in. Kenya school heads have said, come January, we will raise school fees, because it has become very clear to us that the system of doing things means that we will always be in a state of delay. We cannot pay suppliers. We cannot guarantee the proper process of education for these children. So the only way we can do it is go back to the parents and say, give us more money in order to raise school fees, because the government is not giving us the money.
It's not funding us. It's a multiplicity of issues here. Number one, there is how much budgetary allocation is the Ministry of Education receiving for capitation. The Education CS was in Parliament earlier this week, and he said, the government approved a capitation of 22,240 shillings per learner. Okay? That was fixed. This is the amount per learner. And then the budget has remained that way and the same, despite them seeing an increase in the number of learners in schools. Now, this ends up with them not being able to fund the full 22,244, but they end up sending 17,458. That's what is released from the Treasury for lack of funds. So 17K out of 22K. Okay? Now, when the money then goes to schools, the Ministry of Education, when it's releasing the money that is received from the Treasury, it retains some money for health medical cover, for curricular activities, for textbooks. So the money that ends up into school is about 15,479. When it gets there, the 15,479, the school head takes 5,000 for infrastructure development. So the capitation then per child goes down to 10,000. So the school heads have basically submitted a petition to Parliament, and they're saying, we have an issue. We're having a crisis. And this has been cumulatively going on for the last 5 years. What's the solution? Why would this be going on and happening like this? Senator, are you aware?
Right. I cannot speak on behalf of all of Parliament. I do know that the CS was visited to answer questions. And I think that you said it correct. There is a multiplicity of issues here. And what it takes me to beyond the numbers, because the numbers are, sometimes we can't really understand or wrap our heads around these numbers. 54 billion is a lot of money. Over 4 years, since 2019. When I break it down in my mind, I then think there are other big issues that are connected, because everything is interconnected. So even when we see reports of children being having to go through corporal punishment, you can probably trace back the frustration of teachers, the frustration of having not enough resources. If a kid takes 3 chapatis instead of 1 chapati and a chapwa, things like that. And it actually comes back to what we're talking about right now, about capitation not being sent to schools on time and in full, and therefore schools being stretched, teachers feeling frustrated, they're not getting paid, they can't take care of their learners. The learners are also complaining, they don't feel like they're getting a full bite at their education. Parents are also complaining because of the issues. It trickles down absolutely everywhere. And so these stories, I feel like, need to be told, especially to Kenyans who are listening, in a way that they can understand, because the 54 billion sometimes might seem like, okay, well, how can I engage with this information?
Yeah.
However, all of us can engage because we know a learner. We have learners in our midst. We understand when teachers are asking us for extra money for sharpeners and for desks and to buy your own chair. I mean, why should a child go to school and bring their own chair? That is wild to me. And so when Treasury sits back and, crunches these numbers and, like Ndu has asked, is it that someone has used it? Is it that the Treasury has not actually sent it to the ministry yet? We don't know where the gap is. But whoever is making these decisions, clearly their kids don't go to public school. No. It's clear. Let's just face it. Their kids are in South Africa, they're in Germany, they're in America. Because if their kids were the ones being beaten, almost not just to injury but to death in some cases, because of the strains that schools are feeling, then they would understand that this is extremely important. And money, when it's allocated, needs to go to the correct place and to serve its purpose in full. Otherwise, we're not just, straining our kids and our systems and our teachers, but also their futures. Why then are we complaining that we have so much unemployment? Maybe because kids are dropping out, because families can't take their kids through school, or they feel like they've not got a full education. And then they're out here looking for jobs, crying, and then people are complaining that, these kids, they're becoming thieves, they're becoming rampant in, sexual activities, they're doing this, they're doing that. Well, bro, it's because you're not doing your part either, right? So that's sort of where I've gone with it.
What really pains is to look at what exactly are we talking about. When we say that money for education has not been disbursed on time and in the correct amounts, what are we necessarily saying? Like you said, Senator, here it's secondary schools. A majority of our secondary schools are day secondary schools. A majority of our secondary schools are sub-county secondary schools. County and sub-county secondary schools. So these are just those local schools in villages, right? Now, we already know from other research and studies that have been conducted what actually happens in our day secondary schools. Our day secondary schools, number one, have the least number of TSC teachers deployed per school. If you compare in terms of percentage, our day secondary schools have huge populations of students. Our day secondary schools are where the boards of management are the ones who are actually running the school, and the local community is contributing towards sustaining this school. They're the ones who are employing teachers because we have a shortage of teachers in these schools. They're the ones who are having to hire local help. So these children who are in day secondary schools, where they should be getting a lot of capitation and support, they are not receiving it. These day secondary schools should be getting money to also support them in infrastructure development, to expand their infrastructure, to make sure that at least this secondary school can have more than one lab. They don't have that money because the day secondary schools are the ones that have one lab for physics, for biology, for chemistry, for all streams, all classes. So they don't have the money to actually expand this. Now, when we do not finance, what we're basically doing is perpetuating this inequality that's in our education sector and still expecting that things are going to be different.
But I mean, look, if it's possible to even feel this pain a little bit more, of the money that is actually released, when it is actually released to schools, this infrastructure that you're talking about, 5,000 shillings from capitation for each child around the country is retained for infrastructure development. Okay? So take your typical run-of-the-mill school wherever in Baringo that has 500 students. Every time capitation is released, because it's a termly release, is it not? Yes. 5,000 shillings times 500 is how much? Whatever it is. Per term is supposed to go to infrastructure development. Now, do we see the commensurate development of this supposed infrastructure to the amount of money that is retained, so much so that you reduce what can be done with that capitation at every level? Do we see it? And I think the obvious answer is no, because we would not be having that question. Why did we have to retain and domicile junior school at primary schools? Because the infrastructure doesn't exist. But they're telling us that they've been retaining 5,000 shillings every time capitation is released for the development of infrastructure. If that was the case, would we then have to have retained junior school at the primary school level? Would we? So the 5,000, on top of the suffering, 5,000 shillings is then removed. But where is it going? Where is it going?
You see, this money, this 5,000 is being slashed by the school heads when they receive this.
They've been told by the ministry that they must.
That they must.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So when they slash it, one would expect, once the capitation has been sent and you have the 5,000 times whatever, now go ahead and improve infrastructure. You cannot build new infrastructure if you're not even receiving the money.
The
on
money
time.
doesn't come.
You can't plan.
And
so you'll find that the money that comes is just doing the simple things. Blackboard imevunjika, repair blackboard. You're doing the simple things. Hii dirisha lifanya nini, repair the dirisha. Those are the things that they're just doing. It's maintenance. City has been a chair of a board of management. When this infrastructure money comes and at the board, what would you use it for?
Usually we have a problem or we have a plan. There's something we need.
Yes.
And we know we need it. Whether it's repairs or whether it's a lab that was incomplete, we know. We're ahead of time. And the requisite body, like the ministry, knows that these are things we want to do, because you don't just wake up in the morning and decide that we have this money, we are going to do this with it. There has to be something that it was earmarked for.
Yeah.
Then we go through just the normal process of deciding who it is that you're going to, whose service you're going to engage in order to complete the project. Now, in many cases, you will find that projects that have been earmarked by schools are delayed because of this process. This same thing we're discussing here. You have a plan, the money doesn't come when it should. And then when it comes, it usually comes with a myriad of other things that require your attention.
Yep.
So now you have to juggle and decide where. Now, what helps many schools is that if you have a good member of parliament, CDF comes in. And sometimes with CDF, you're able to plug in some holes. Yes. But you are always playing a rearguard role in trying to catch up with whatever it is that you are supposed to have done in the first place.
And I can also see another problem that the school heads would have. Once the money arrives and it's arriving in arrears, 6 months, 8 months arrears, you have already incurred very many expenses with just the basics. This is feeding the children and all. So inevitably, you'll have to use some of these 5,000 shillings that you are earmarking to wait for at in your Mujanga classroom to basically feed the children. Because you have debts and there's no more money coming. So if the money that came, you were left with some 1 million shillings that you had set aside if infrastructure, and you haven't received any more money, and you're at the beginning of the term, you'll use that money. So it's a vicious cycle that basically we seem not to be just, 54 B itapatikana. Machogu went to parliament and said, you know what, now where we are so far, we have caught up. We have finished our arrears. We are doing well. Are they?
And then what then happens is when, like City has said, you need to work on things that have been pending for a long time. Money goes there. And then school heads and boards need to start getting creative with the money that has now turned up after X amount of time that you've been waiting for it. You get creative. And that means that you're not really focusing on building new or improving anything, but you're just focusing on fixing what is broken, maintaining this and the other. So schools, in my mind, and from what I've also been engaging lots of, especially special needs schools teachers, they say then they have to get creative in where they get their money from. Where does that money come from? Donors, which means CSO community, which means NGOs, which means not just the ones who are local, outside, foreign aid. And then, for me, it then becomes or it equals us continuing to need help from outside, even though we have the money. We have been allocated the money. The money has been earmarked for XYZ reasons, 54 billion. But because it's not being used correctly, we have to then be creative and look outside, which means that we will never be able to stand as an independent nation for real, because we're always having to look left and right for extra help. And then we find these issues of, we have influence, these countries have influence over us, is because they're feeding us. Literally, they're feeding us.
Yeah.
And they know that we'll never be able to clean up our act. And they will continue to feed us, and they will continue then calling the shots. Okay, we're giving you X amount of money from this bank, from this organization, from this country. Do this with it. And plus, when we give this money, we want you to make sure that you allow X, Y, Z to happen. Make sure that you sign 1, 2, 3. I mean, the issue just will never end unless we get our act together internally, clean up house internally, and take money where it's supposed to go and on time.
Let's take a break. 27 minutes to 10. We are ranting this morning. It's a rant and rave session. Where is 54 billion shillings that's meant to go for secondary school capitation? That's a headline, the big headline in the Standard this morning. Where is this 54 billion shillings funding for schools? New revelations are showing that secondary schools have not received the amount of money over the last 5 years, with the Treasury retaining 5,000 out of every 22,000 per child, and then the Education Ministry retaining close to 2,000 again per child. I mean, and still, the money is never released on time. This has had an impact on the quality of education that our children are receiving. We want to hear from you, 0719-012-600. Senator Crystal Asige is in the studio with us. She came in, she was passing by. Alikuwa naenda hivi na come. Aha.
And you guys put a mic in front of me.
And then so after this break, let's hear from you. Siti, tell us about the Brookside Dairy Best and why it's important to think about Brookside Dairy Best when you think about chai.
Well, one, we are trying to get people to understand that much as black tea is very good and useful, I'm told it's even good with lemon and tangawizi. Well, pause for a second and just consider. If you're drinking tea and the reference point is Kenyan tea, that tea just doesn't have tea leaves brewed in hot water, boiling water. There's milk in it. Now, if you really want to enjoy the true flavor of the richness of tea, that tea has to be with milk that is both rich and creamy. Now, when you boil it to perfection, and that particular milk is Dairy Best, then you have something really very simple and easy to understand. You have Kenyan tea, and it's what you call chai kweli, real tea, true tea.
Bas. Chai kweli, the Brookside Dairy Best.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We love to share our culture and the one language that unites us all. One that helps us start the day and keeps us going. Brookside Dairy Best is part of every celebration and offers a warm welcome to every home.
Karibuni chai.
Na hii ni lugha ambayo kila Mkenya anaelewa. The more the milk, the better the chai. Chai kweli ina Brookside Dairy Best.
Chai kweli ina Brookside Dairy Best.
Tao, 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 tao. Oiluara, tao, 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 tao. Tao, tao, tao.
Manze hii traffic ileta noma tachelewa job. Ndakuwa kwa ngori.
Buda, usipera wa shida. Gari imejaa, wendo tunangoja. Ingia, barabara sisi ni nyue.
Kenya Roads Board is committed to ensure an efficient road network for a prosperous nation. Your fuel levy at work.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi, 17 degrees, highs of 24. And we'll see highs of 22 in a cloudy Nakuru at 18. It's cloudy at 17 in Nyeri with highs of 22. And looking into a cloudy Eldoret at 18, highs of 22 and lows of 14. Mombasa, heavy with rain still at 25 with highs of 27. And we'll see highs of 26. In a cloudy Malindi at 27, going to lows of 24. And then into Kisumu, it's partly sunny now at 24, highs of 26, and 26 will be the high in a partly sunny Kakamega at 22. Out in Kampala, it's cloudy at 21, and Dar es Salaam is cloudy after the rain at 26. Into Addis Ababa, it's 17 and cloudy, and Mogadishu is mostly sunny at 29. Johannesburg is partly sunny at 16, with partly sunny conditions in Lagos at 26. It's cloudy at 25 in Kinshasa. And looking out into Beijing, Friday afternoon is sunny at 17, and in Paris, 7 degrees and mostly cloudy. London is 8 and cloudy. And in New York, Thursday night still is 7 degrees and clear, coming into Friday, highs of 14 and lows of 7. Traffic hour according to the clock, and you shouldn't be seeing much more of this. Still a little bit of a hold up on James Gishuru as you get over the drift through towards Waiyaki Way, and with that traffic and road construction and all these other nice things, that looks like it'll hold up for a bit. And then Pangani at the underpass on the Thika Superhighway, still a bit sticky, so let's watch out for that into the CBDs where most of this action is happening today. So in all things, be careful getting into the weekend, but traffic should not be an issue, at least not for now, and we'll look through it later on in the day. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on X.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
21 minutes to 10.
Mornings done right.
Looking into what's happening with school fees and asking ourselves the question about where is it going to come from in January. Kiwi says, I got you. Let's see how we can make sure that some kids get into school and pay their fees. All right, so what are you going to do about that? You're going to go into any of your supermarkets and you'll pick up a tin of the new design Kiwi shoe polish, and then it will pop the lid. Under the lid is a code, and as you dial this number, *459*5#, you will then follow the instructions. Instantly, you will win airtime or data, and then your automatic entry into the draw to be able to win 35,000 shillings towards school fees come January. You're going to need it. A lot of us are. And 4 winners per week is what we're looking at, isn't it? 35,000 shillings. It's a good amount of money. It'll do a lot. So walk in, buy it, step up and shine with Kiwi today.
It's important. Let me tell you about fuel, all right? Every time you fuel your vehicle, some part of that money, 18 bob to be precise, per litre, 18 shilling per litre, is going into the road maintenance levy. Now, this money is used then by the Kenya Roads Board to maintain your roads. The Kenya Roads Board does not do the job. It has its agencies, the Kenya National Highways Authority, the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, the Kenya Urban Roads Authority, and the Kenya WS. Wildlife Service. Okay.
Kenya WS. Okay.
Authority.
That's actually what it is.
So those 3-4 agencies are then given part of this money by the Kenya Roads Board and told, all right, you've got some roads under your jurisdiction, go and use that to maintain. When you are driving on a smooth road, just remember, it is your money that's maintaining that. The Kenya Roads Board tells you your fuel levy is at work. Senator Crystal Asige is still in the studio with us. She became our impromptu guest, and we thank her for staying. 0719-012-600. We are ranting and raving this morning about our education system and our education sector. Funding for education is a big issue. Let's just begin with the admission by the Cabinet Secretary for Education, who says we actually don't get allocated enough money to support our children in capitation. Now, this is a Cabinet Secretary who is speaking in November, just a couple of months after the budget was passed in Parliament and after his ministry got the lion's share, lion plus tiger share of the budget in the 3.6 trillion shilling budget that was passed. Then he comes and says, by the way, it wasn't enough. He is the one who presented that budget to the National Treasury. He went and defended that budget before the Committee on Education, and he got the allocation that he got. Then now, later he says, you know, watoto hawezi soma bwana. Hii pesa. Hii pesa haitoshi.
At the risk of sounding rude, how did they get this guy to be the CS for education?
You're sounding rude. You took the risk, didn't you?
No, I mean, I'm asking this question because when you have somebody who's the CS for education and they're sounding helpless, okay, what are the rest of us supposed to do? He is the minister.
Yeah.
Okay? And that is what he is saying. So the rest of us, if we take that cue, what are we supposed to do? get into a depression, feel despondent, feel neglected, feel betrayed. What on earth are we supposed to do?
Give up.
Is there any hope in that message? Is there any signaling that, folks, is there? You know, there are questions. In African settings, it is understood that there's certain things you shouldn't say about leadership because then it is considered again rude. But what do you say when something is staring at you in the face? Do you look at it and say it and call it for what it is, or do you pretend it isn't what you're seeing?
Nikisema wewe ni kumbafu, nitakuwa nimekutukana.
You see, how does the Ministry of Education, which the minister present itself? Because the things he says represents the entire ministry and everything that falls under that ministry. When you yourself sound as though you have no way forward. Surely. Huh?
What actually I don't get, Senator, is even in the first supplementary budgets of this financial year, the Ministry of Education is getting the highest allocation in a supplementary budget. We are taking money from other projects that were earmarked for development in this year and taking them back into education. It sounds like we are being caught flat-footed, like, oh my God, you guys give birth to more children. Jesus.
Now we have
Last
to
time I was telling is that only 1 million of you are getting into school. Now you're
telling me 1.4.
Surely. It's like we did not know. By the time we were doing the budget for this financial year, we didn't know how much we needed for education. And that's why we have to go and get money from something else to come and fund education. It's not an emergency. It's not like we have had something that's an emergency in our education sector that would mean having a supplementary budget that goes to education. I don't get it. And then more than that, we talk about that the fact that the Ministry of Education has been catching up with capitation. Every financial year, money is spent. You close the books on the 30th of June, and we never close a book with a deficit. With a surplus.
With a surplus.
No.
We always spend, in fact, more than what Parliament had initially approved.
And even still go and look for additional funding to
bridge gaps
and
by
budgetary.
Borrowing.
Come on.
So if we're doing all so the money that was earmarked for education in 2019-2020, where did it go for capitation? 21-22, where did it go?
Okay.
22-23. If we are catching up with this in this financial year.
We're not catching up.
There is a department within the ministry, I believe, whose function is to not just audit, but to give us a clear indication of how all these billions and hundreds of billions are utilized, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of the few times one has had occasion to actually understand was, I think, around the COVID period. Same thing that was done to the Ministry of Health. Okay, fine. Money enough, money not enough. Let's just go with the conversation. Let's start with the not enough. What did it do? It was intended for something. What did it do? Did it achieve? Because if it wasn't enough, then we should be told, this is where we got with what we had. We achieved this. And this is the evidence of that which we say was achieved. So the deficit, when you're talking about it, it's in terms of just not enough. Projects this. In this area, this is what we missed out on. But the question you asked, Eric, is still relevant. When you budgeted, you had figured it would be enough for those.
That's what a budget is it not? That you have certain things and you say, this is what we are going to spend. This is the forecast. That to have 15 children, to feed them, to give them books, to have this, how much it costs. That's what a budget is. So when they're giving you, because that's what, oftentimes when we think about the budget that happens in June, July, that we think that people just sat last week and then they said, we need this much. Okay, then the country. No, it's a process.
It takes over a year to do.
Over a year. And they go through these lines. So they know.
Okay.
They know.
So these things were not done. What are these things that were not done? And can we quantify what is required to... And has this to be... Must it be a yearly discussion?
I think if I reflect or respond to your first thought of if the CS is telling us this, what are we supposed to do? What are the rest of us supposed to do? It reminds me of yesterday when we were in the House and Boni Halwale, Senator for Kakamega, said, Mr. Speaker, you cannot give a Dreamliner to a matatu driver to drive. and think that they will do it. That's the thought that I went to, not saying anything, but that's where I went. So now I ask myself about education, this topic. I mean, I believe that you cannot bake bread in a cold oven, right? If there is, you cannot expect our children, our young people to evolve and thrive and have prospering careers and, bring the GDP up if we're not even doing our basic, education correctly. Yeah. And I just don't know. I wonder how it is that myself, I've sat in committee meetings with the CS himself, and he's actually categorically told me, I remember I put a statement to him, and I asked him, what's happening in special needs schools? Why are they not getting paid? Why are teachers complaining for the last 6 months? Same conversation we're having right now. That was maybe earlier in the year, the first quarter is when the CS came to answer my questions. And he told me in that meeting that the way that they're helping children with disabilities across the country in education, with their infrastructure, with accessibility, part of the remedy that they're looking into is by buying more cars. So they're putting away almost 10 million shillings per area to buy new cars, so that these cars can go around looking and making sure that young people with disabilities are taken care of in their schools. And then I asked the CS.
So the cars for inspection.
Right.
That's the support.
That's the support that he was saying that is part of the new innovative strategy. Yes, moving forward. Correct. So we sat there, and I asked the chair of the committee, of the education committee, Amanda Go. But chair, this doesn't make sense at all. I feel like maybe the CS has not really heard what he has said. Perhaps he's being advised incorrectly by his team. I mean, he has a whole team, like you said, behind him. The PS, DGs, etc., technical people. And I wonder if it's actually the team, because usually it's the team behind that does the legwork, right? And the CS is the one who signs off, makes the high-level decisions. So I'm also wondering, what is the caliber of the team that is advising him? Same with any leader who will be asking questions about.
The ones that's asking the questions. You said the chair is Mandago.
Yes, for education committee.
The same Mandago. Is there another Mandago?
Pause.
I'm just asking.
The question was asked by Senator Asige.
I'm just asking to be sure who we are talking about. That's all I've asked.
Okay, let me actually withdraw. Mandago is chair for health.
Committee.
Pardon me. Education is new to my bad. Yes, it was Senator
Because
Newton.
I would have gone, the show would have ended at 11.
You have things to say? You want to rant and rave?
No, not rant and rave. They're just questions that need answering.
She has a heavy heart. So you asked this question and you sought clarification.
Yes.
You even attempted to repeat the question.
Correct.
Just in case, you didn't get me right the first time.
Perhaps.
So what was his response the second time?
The second time is he said that he's heard my concerns about the allocation of money towards buying cars, the millions to buy cars, and that he will go back with his team and they will re-look into it and consider my submission. That was the end, Elisha Tuivia.
Senator, what are the main concerns for the special education schools?
Well, apart from what we're talking about right now, teachers not being paid. Right now, there is a petition that's come to my office from a group of special needs teachers from the coast who are complaining about exactly the same thing. And special needs kids, I like to call them learners with disabilities. We've had this conversation the last time I was here.
Yes.
Special needs is not a thing that I enjoy saying. So learners with disabilities, of course, they need more support. Not because they should be looked at as a burden, but because they just have extra support that they require. Yeah. And this is hinged on money coming in on time, making sure that the ministry understands the needs of young people with disabilities in schools, which are different from mainstream schools, and there are things like, of course, mobility aids. We're talking about accessibility in the buildings. We're talking about, there are kids right now, learners with disabilities in schools, who are only confined to the bottom floor classroom. Yep. They sit there for geography. They sit there for maths. They sit there for English. They sit there for Kiswahili. They eat lunch in there because they cannot go into the garden, into the playground. That's not accessible to them. They sit and eat lunch in there. And then you wonder why learners with disabilities are not thriving, are not doing well. Why in KCPE you only see maybe 10 or 20 or 30 learners with disabilities who are actually going over the pass rate. I mean, that's it. Mental health is an issue. Of course, we're talking about nutrition as well, because learners with disabilities need that to be well thought out as well. It's not just something that you can just give them maharagwe na mafuta ndani, whatever it is that we used to eat when we were all in school, when we were younger. And then, of course, we have to understand that when they go home, they have extra additional issues that they have to, challenges that they have to deal with in the home, because our parents, unfortunately, our guardians, our caretakers, our communities are not sensitized on how to take care of learners with disabilities. So it's really like a whole 360 situation. And I was trying to explain this to the CS earlier in the year. And the answer that I got about that one innovative strategy, I was like, no, sir. I don't think the answer lies there.
Let's go to the phone line, 0719-012-600. Kerry in Kileleshwa is on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I just also wanted to raise the fact that even in public school, those of us who have ever engaged in politics and tried to contest, we are receiving very many messages on WhatsApp. Parents complaining that they now have a budget on textbooks for the new term next year. And I was wondering, because during the last term, the provision for textbook was captured in the ministry's budget. And it was a very good thing that all a student needed to do was to get to school. And there was no money needed for them to be admitted. And now we are back to the I don't like calling it the Moi era, but the past, the dark past, when taking a child even to basic education in Kenya was quite something. So apart from the 56 or so billions that has not for capitation that has not gone to school, I don't know if the Minister of Education has made it upon himself to visit some of these schools. There are schools where one teacher is handling a class of over 80 or 100 students. And just that is enough for you to wonder what type of quality education are we giving to the future generations. So sometimes I get really discouraged, but without saying much, let me yield time for others to also contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Thank you for that. 0719-012-600. Let's hear from you. I mean, because school heads have not received money, have not received textbooks, now they're telling you, parent, listen, you want me to teach your child? You give me the textbook.
Buy it and bring.
You know, this same parent is a taxpayer. This same parent is the person who has made it possible for the Ministry of Education to have that hefty budget. So they've actually done their bit. Now then you want to go back to them again and tell them that the bit that you did is insufficient, and yet it's supposed to have been adequate. You know why? Because the money that was intended for that purpose was already allocated and was deemed to be sufficient.
Yeah.
So it's now being deemed to be insufficient. How?
Very many questions here. Let's hear from Gaur. Gaur, good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen in the studio. How are you doing?
Good morning. Well, thank you.
Now, either by coincidence or something, you are slipping into the real core of the problem facing Africa. Repeatedly, also many times, you people have been saying that it is the electorate that make a mistake, electing bad leaders and things like that. I mean, those are called fumbles about the problem. The problem facing Africa is education. That is the reason why the budget can be read there, and then when it comes to application of what has been read, it is not applied that way. That's the reason why funds can be, all policies can be made, and then finally the application must fail. Education is the challenge. I'm trying to organize something I'm doing. Then either in sometimes in December or thereabout, I'll try to self-invite myself there to, try to help you. Yes. so that I can help you understand.
December is not far.
There is no way.
It's
there
just
is
3
no
weeks
way
away.
education. Yes, no, put it like that because there is a finality I'm making on some work which I'm doing.
Okay.
Now, there is no way you can handle education, or education can be handled by people who do not understand education.
Very true.
The question first and foremost is, how do we understand education? What is it? Today you are manufacturing 1 million students every year without telling people where you are taking those people after that manufacture. Where are they going? Now you are exporting them to the very people that used to colonize Africa. The other day you were complaining that they used the strongest men from Africa to build those foreign economies. Today you are volunteering the same trained manpower to go and build their economies. Then tomorrow you say, we are underdeveloped. These guys, I think we have not, we are still, but I'm saying again,
Rant and rave, brother.
Thank you, God. Time is up, but the invitation is open. Asante sana.
Thank you, sir.
Well, it's not enough. 1 hour is not enough to rave on this. We want to dedicate some more time next week.
Yeah.
And seek out again the CS for Education, the Principal Secretary for Basic Education, and other actors in the education sector. Senator, asante sana for joining us.
Thank you very much.
See you again later tonight.
This is what happens when you pass by.
Yes, later tonight. This is what happens. Yeah, we just dive right in. Thank you, though.
I've got to announce 2 winners for the Brookside Dairy Best. We were asking you take a photo of Brookside Dairy Best, show us what you're doing with it, and there are 2 winners who've been picked by our man, Mr. Ignatius Openje. Wayne Bryan and Dorcas Kinyada. They took some very nice photos. Dorcas has some chai na mukati na Dairy Best iko pale. Wayne Bryan has chai bila mukati lakini kuna Dairy Best. Congratulations, we'll get back in touch with you. Have a lovely weekend, people. See you on Monday, 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. King Charles III and Queen Camilla will today spend the last day of their official visit in Mombasa. They will visit a mosque and the King will meet faith leaders from diverse communities to hear how they are working together